Every dawn for 3 straight years, an 8-pound bass I named Big Bertha glided to my weathered dock, and I'd sprinkle feed just like my granddad taught me, watching sunlight dance on her scales while promising this lake would always be her safe home. Every dawn for 3 straight years, an 8-pound bass I named Big Bertha glided up to my dock the instant the sun cracked the tree line, and I'd sprinkle feed just like my granddad taught me, listening to the wrens, smelling honeysuckle, feeling the planks warm beneath bare feet while promising that this lake would always stay her safe home. My grandfather carved that promise into the cedar post back in '52, the same year he hauled these timbers down here by mule, and I'd run my fingers over the fading letters each morning, tracing the grooves like a daily oath. Protect the water, protect the life it carries. Some mornings I'd swear the whole place breathed with me. Cypresses leaned in close, turtles sunned on half-submerged logs, and the water lay so still it mirrored the sky until Bertha's dorsal fin sliced a perfect V toward the dock. I'd watch her shadow roll, scales flashing bronze and emerald as she surfaced, then laugh out loud. The kind of laugh you only hear when nobody else is around to judge how happy a single fish can make a grown man. Those were the moments that reset my soul, made every worry shrink down to nothing but ripples. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon. That way, you'll never miss any new coming videos like this. Now, let's get back to it. Granddad always said a man's true wealth is counted in mornings like these, not dollars, and I believed him right up until the first McMansion sprouted beyond the pines. Even then, I figured peace could coexist with progress, until a white Lexus rolled in carrying a neighbor who saw this living postcard as nothing more than an unsightly fishing platform. But in that first light, with Bertha nudging my boot for one more pellet, none of their covenants or bylaws existed. It was just me, the lake, and a promise older than any homeowner's association on Earth. 15 years before Big Bertha's last sunrise, quiet gravel roads that once led only to tobacco rows and sagging barns began sprouting orange survey flags like invasive weeds. The county had approved Willow Creek Estates, 847 luxury homes, each promising Lakeview tranquility to executives craving country serenity without giving up lattes or Wi-Fi. Bulldozers flattened fields that had grown corn and memories for generations. Their diesel growl replaced the whippoorwills at dusk. Still, I told myself progress was inevitable, and if newcomers wanted to jog past my gate and wave polite hellos, well, good manners cost nothing. During construction, I'd end each day on the dock, boots dangling over water while fresh-laid asphalt smell drifted across cattails. Some workers stuck around after shifts, tossing sandwich crusts to the bluegill. They asked permission first, real respect, so I brewed extra coffee in the thermos and swapped fishing stories under nail-gun thunder. Even when the blinding white show homes finally rose like cruise ships against the tree line, I figured we could share the view. The lake had room for all of us, so long as they understood one rule: you treat water like a living neighbor. Then came the letters. Thick envelopes with gold-embossed crests announcing Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association cordially invites Marcus Reed to consider voluntary annexation. Translation: sell your 12 acres or accept their regulations, which included approved fence colors, lawn ornament limits, and no agricultural activities without prior architectural review. Agricultural activities, meaning my vegetable patch and worm compost bin that made the soil smell alive. I laughed, penned a polite decline, and went back to mending a crappie net worn thin by honest use. 2 weeks later, a representative from the developer showed up in a pressed suit and mud-free boots, unfolding numbers that could have bought me beachfront property in 3 states. He talked about liquidity, retirement comfort, legacy diversification. I talked about my grandfather splitting cedar posts by hand so his grandson could grow old beside fish songs and frog choirs. We had different dictionaries. The meeting ended in a handshake colder than February steel. Most new residents kept to themselves. They waved as promised, sometimes asked if the lake held catfish big enough for weekend fish fries. I'd nod, point out safe spots for kids to cast, remind them to catch and release the bass during spawn. Mutual respect felt possible, until a white Lexus rolled past the speed bump too slow to kick up dust. Out stepped Vivian Blackwater, real estate attorney, nails lacquered the exact coral shade of an Instagram sunset. She scanned the shoreline the way appraisers eye crown molding, what can be flipped, polished, or bulldozed. Her first words to me weren't hello, but do you manage maintenance on that structure? Meaning my dock. I answered yes, 30 years and counting. She answered with tight-lipped silence, the kind where you can hear a person calculating leverage. Within 6 months, she masterminded a coup that made HOA history. Bylaw amendments zipped through monthly meetings like freight trains nobody read until they'd passed. Overnight, aesthetic compliance became gospel. Any deviation triggered polite-sounding fines that could bankrupt a retiree in a season. Neighbors joked she scheduled her breathing on Outlook, but behind the humor lurked fear, because Vivian didn't joke. She issued citations for off-dome porch lights, non-approved bird feeders, even a garden gnome that dared wear a blue hat instead of HOA-sanctioned earth tones. People paid the fines because fighting meant lawyers, and lawyers meant mortgages morphing into anvils. I escaped her radar until the morning she took a sunset kayak picture from her back deck, filtered, hashtagged, destined for thousands of likes, only to notice a bearded man in the frame reeling in a largemouth at dawn. Comments rolled in from her city friends. Cute pond, but who's the hillbilly? Vanity fused with rage. The very next day, a certified letter accused my dock of visual disharmony and unauthorized commercial fishing operations, as if feeding a bass named Bertha were some underground seafood cartel. I read the letter twice, sipping coffee that tasted suddenly bitter, then pinned it on the fridge with a trout-shaped magnet like a toddler's art project. Sandra found me grinning at it that night. She asked if I was okay. I said it was the funniest fiction I'd read all year. But funny turned costly fast. At 6 a.m. sharp, backhoes rattled beside her property line. Emergency landscaping, they claimed, right when bass hit topwater. Chainsaws screamed over birdsong, diesel fumes rode the breeze until honeysuckle smelled like truck stop exhaust. The crew blasted classic rock loud enough to shake pollen from cypress needles. Still, I kept casting, Bertha circling hungry beneath the chaos like a queen ignoring distant riots. Noise ordinances start at 7 a.m., I reminded the foreman. He shrugged, orders were orders, and fired up another leaf blower aimed straight over the water. After 2 weeks of dawn-timed machinery, I spotted a tripod and laser level perched on Vivian's lawn. Survey team, high-end, the kind whose invoices look like small car loans. They spent hours measuring shoreline angles already etched in county archives older than color television. I offered sweet tea. They declined, eyes fixed on screens mapping my property down to the inch. That night, another envelope arrived. Legal notice asserting my dock jutted exactly 6 inches into common lake frontage, demanding immediate removal or daily fines of $500. $6 inches, the length of a dollar bill, the width of a handshake. I laughed again, but this time the sound caught in my throat. I phoned Tom Martinez, the real estate lawyer who saved me when a telecom company tried burying fiber optic lines through my garden. Tom asked for copies, chuckled halfway through page 2, and said, "Marcus, retroactive covenants can't touch a structure older than the association. Her threat's worth less than an IOU on a wet napkin." Logic was comforting, but rage rose like summer thunder. Because harassment isn't just about money, it's about stealing quiet, turning ritual into battle. Dawn on the dock used to be prayer. Now I scanned tree lines for the next ambush. Sandra suggested mediation. I considered a taller fence. Granddad's words won out. You can't outshout a bully, but you can outlast him if you stand on truth. So I kept fishing, documenting every chainsaw roar on my phone, time-stamped. Somewhere in Vivian's spreadsheet heart, I'd become an error she couldn't spreadsheet away. Whatever her next move, she'd find out the hard way that a family promise carved in cedar doesn't splinter easily. The county inspector showed up on a drizzly Tuesday, boots splashing through puddles as he apologized before even reaching the porch. "Mr. Reed, I've been ordered to verify an anonymous complaint about an illegal dock structure." His clipboard sagged with printed screenshots from satellite images. My dock circled in red like a crime scene. I invited him in for black coffee, laid out the original 1987 permits, and watched amusement replace embarrassment in his eyes. 5 minutes later, he snapped photos, signed a form stating full compliance, and muttered, "Some folks must be awfully bored." He left shaking his head while raindrops drummed a soft victory cadence on the tin roof. Vivian's response came the very next dawn. Instead of chainsaws, she unleashed social media. My phone pings began before sunrise, tagged posts in the Willow Creek Estates group accusing me of commercial overfishing, disturbing native bird migration, and the kicker, unlicensed fish sales from his dock. A blurry zoom of me handing a neighbor 2 bluegill for her grandkids morphed into evidence of a black market seafood ring. Comments multiplied like mold and humidity. Concerns about declining property values, calls for immediate legal action, whispers that I stored toxic bait in rusty drums. Most neighbors scrolled past, but a vocal handful fanned flames until the thread read like a vigilante manifesto. Sandra urged me to ignore the drama, but lies spread faster than June kudzu. 2 solar panel clients postponed installations, pending further clarification. A local diner stopped buying my heirloom tomatoes after someone hinted my soil was chemically compromised. I realized reputation wasn't just pride. It fed our mortgage. So I posted a calm, fact-filled rebuttal with copies of the inspector's clearance and a Fish and Wildlife certificate showing 0 violations. My facts sank beneath waves of snark. Vivian replied within minutes, "Documents can be forged. We must protect our community." The following week, a sheriff's deputy knocked, civil summons in hand. Vivian had filed a lawsuit alleging encroachment, environmental damage, and interference with HOA governance, demanding fines, dock removal, and court costs. Reading 42 pages of legalese felt like biting tinfoil. Tom Martinez reviewed the documents over lunch, spreading papers across a checkered tablecloth shiny with barbecue sauce. "She's praying you'll cave under costs," he said. "But if we push back, we can expose her bluff." He suggested a countersuit for harassment and slander, but something in me wanted more than courtroom arm wrestling. I wanted daylight on every shadow she'd cast. That desire sent me to the county courthouse basement, an archival cave of dust motes swirling in flickering fluorescent light. I sifted through brittle folders older than color TV until a beige deed bordered in ornate ink stopped me cold. My grandfather's 1952 purchase agreement, 12 acres, including exclusive surface and subsurface water rights to the spring system and all connected tributaries in perpetuity. The words felt electric in my hands. Perpetuity. Forever, every drop in the lake, and by extension, every drop feeding the subdivision wells, was legally Reed water. I called Tom right there, voice echoing among metal shelves. "Tom, I think we just found the nuclear code." He laughed, then grew quiet as I read the clause aloud. "This flips the board," he said finally. "She's suing you for inches of dock. You own the whole aquifer. We file a notice of water rights ownership first thing Monday." As we built our case, Vivian doubled her pressure campaign. 2 mornings later, diesel trucks idled at the shoreline while her landscaping crew shaved perfectly healthy oaks into topuried obelisks, sending clouds of sawdust across the lake like toxic snow. I filmed everything, zooming in on leaf blowers roaring 15 feet from posted wetland protection signs. That evening, I emailed the footage to the county environmental tip line and copied the EPA regional office for good measure. The harassment crescendoed when I discovered a business card wedged under my windshield wiper, Clearwater Solutions, Algaecide and Pond Management. Scribbled on the back, "Call us if the lake's slime gets worse." The implication was clear as the water she intended to poison. A chill rippled through me stronger than any autumn wind. Instead of reacting with anger, I prepared. Motion-activated cameras went up along the bank, their lenses concealed beneath cypress knees. Water samples were cataloged daily, sealed, and dated. I even logged the decibel levels of her emergency landscaping each dawn, building a timeline thick enough to choke a shredder. One quiet night, while moonlight bronzed the ripples, I knelt at the carved cedar post and traced my grandfather's promise. Protect the water, protect the life it carries. Vivian believed property value could bully heritage, that regulations could outmuscle roots sunk deeper than HOA bylaws. She hadn't learned what Bertha and I understood instinctively. Water remembers. It remembers the hands that nurtured it and the boots that trampled its banks. And soon, the whole subdivision would learn that lesson every time they turned on a faucet. The first government vehicle rolled up before the rooster even cleared its throat. White letters reading U.S. Fish and Wildlife across the door. Two agents stepping out with clipboards, Polaroid lenses, and polite embarrassment splashed across their faces. They'd received a complaint that my commercial fishing operation was disrupting migratory bird patterns. My operation consisted of one old man, one coffee-stained tackle box, and a promise to a bass, but rules are rules. I brewed them fresh coffee, answered their scripted questions, and watched relief spread when the worst violation they found was a dock plank that needed renailing. They left a friendly warning about keeping noise low during nesting season, which would have been funny if a dozen chainsaws weren't shredding oaks across the water at dawn every morning. 2 days later, the Environmental Protection Agency showed up in hazmat boots. The lead inspector, a wiry fellow named Patterson, unfolded a water testing kit that looked like it belonged on a Mars rover. He explained they had a tip about possible contaminants leaching from my bait buckets. While his strips turned reassuring shades of neutral, workers on Vivian's side were fertilizing lawns so aggressively you could smell synthetic nitrogen 4 lots away. Patterson examined my spotless tackle buckets, then the unnatural emerald tint growing along her shoreline, and raised an eyebrow that could have sliced granite. By the time he finished scribbling notes, he asked whether I'd noticed any large-scale dumping activities. I said I kept a camera running these days. He said he'd be grateful for any footage. The county health department followed, then code enforcement, then an officer from soil and water conservation who sheepishly admitted he'd been told I was operating an unlicensed hatchery. I treated every inspector like a cousin at Sunday supper. Fresh biscuits, open ledgers, labeled water samples. If Vivian wanted to sic bureaucrats on me, fine. I'd just make sure they left understanding who the real nuisance was. That's how I met Dolores Martinez, a 68-year-old retired county clerk they called back in as a temp when paperwork overflowed. She showed up with bifocals dangling on a beaded chain that swung like a metronome while she scanned my permits. Dolores had sorted building permit chaos back when computers filled entire rooms. She could smell forged signatures the way hunters smell rain. We got to talking, and when I mentioned the subdivision's relentless landscaping, her lips pursed like she'd tasted vinegar. "Those properties sit on federal wetlands easements," she said, tapping a manicure chipped from decades of filing cabinets. "Developer promised perpetual preservation to get his build permit. Any improper runoff can bring down fines big enough to buy half this county." Next morning before sunrise, I sat hidden behind cypress knees, camera lens aimed like a telescope at Vivian's shoreline. Right on schedule, her contractor, pristine landscaping, fleet of shiny trucks, began leaf-blowing shredded hedges straight into the water. Fertilizer-soaked clippings drifted like neon confetti across a surface once clear enough to mirror the dawn. I filmed every second, my breath fogging the viewfinder while the stench of diesel mixed with honeysuckle. When the crew finished dumping, I zoomed in on the company logo just to gild the lily. That night I uploaded photos, timestamps, GPS metadata, and a short video of runoff sluicing through cattails, each file labeled like evidence in a crime drama. Monday morning, Dolores met me at the cafe that serves coffee thick as motor oil. I slid the flash drive across Formica flecked with crumbs, and she slipped a folded permit packet back. "Pristine is 40% owned by a Richard Blackwater," she whispered, eyes glittering. "Married to your favorite HOA president." The room seemed to tilt as puzzle pieces snapped into place. The non-stop landscaping over time, the fertilized water line, the brazen dumping all funded by HOA dues and funneled into her husband's pockets. That afternoon Patterson returned, this time with a stiff-jawed colleague wearing an EPA badge. They watched the footage in my living room, faces blank as poker champions until the final clip where debris cascaded straight into protected wetland. Patterson clicked pause, exhaled slowly, and said, "We'll need written statements and access to your shoreline cameras." I signed whatever they handed me, each signature feeling like another nail in Vivian's coffin. By week's end, 3 pristine city contracts vanished from Richard Blackwater's landscape empire. Municipalities don't like doing business with companies under federal investigation. Trucks that once paraded like show ponies now sat idle, logos half-scrubbed in shame. Yet the noise on Vivian's property grew quieter, almost tentative, as though she sensed the ground shifting beneath her stilettos. She responded not with apology but escalation. Anonymous threats tucked under my doormat, calls from unknown numbers advising I cool it with the videos, and late-night drive-bys where headlights lingered on my porch too long. I logged every incident, copied voicemails to cloud storage, and kept the sheriff's non-emergency line on speed dial. Fear tried nudging into my chest, but each time it whispered, I heard Granddad's steadier voice. "Stand your ground. Water remembers." One particularly starless night, the lake lay black as spilled ink. I stood on the dock, camera in hand, listening. Frogs quieted, an omen I'd learned meant engines approaching. Sure enough, twin halogen beams pierced the tree line, and a pickup idled near Vivian's yard. 2 silhouettes hefted black trash bags toward the shoreline, but this time they froze mid-stride, startled by the sudden flash of my camera and the unmistakable click echoing across water. They bolted, tires spitting gravel, while my camera captured license plates in crystal detail. 20 minutes later, Deputy Carlson was on my porch sipping coffee as we reviewed the footage. Attempted dumping, trespassing, potential evidence tampering, charges stacking like cordwood. Each documented crime stripped another layer from Vivian's veneer of respectability, exposing raw desperation beneath. She still had no idea I owned the aquifer, no clue her every hostile maneuver only tightened a legal noose she'd woven herself. And I still hadn't unleashed the biggest secret in my archive. Proof that the water she was busy polluting flowed straight into every designer faucet in Willow Creek Estates. Soon, her reign would crumble not under angry Facebook posts or petty fines, but under the weight of a truth as old as the spring itself. The threat card from Clearwater Solutions kept me awake for 2 nights. I changed passwords, reinforced gate locks, and positioned trail cams at every approach, but paranoia doesn't stop a woman determined to rewrite reality with cash. When Sandra's sister phoned about a surprise birthday gathering in Charlotte, I hesitated. 2 days away felt risky. Sandra squeezed my hand across the kitchen table, steam curling from her teacup. "We can't let her trap us here," she said. "A life on hold is still a life stolen." I kissed the cedar post before we left, whispering the promise to Bertha and every turtle sunning on the logs. "Back Sunday, hold the fort." We returned just after dusk, tires crunching the gravel lane. I opened the truck door and gagged. A metallic stench knifed through the humid air, copper pennies soaked in bleach. The lake shimmered under the pickup's headlights, but not the moon-polished silver I knew. It glowed an artificial blue-green, the color of cheap windshield fluid. My boots slipped on unfamiliar slime coating the dock. A sickly silence hung where crickets should have been screaming. Flashlight beams skated across the surface, finding pale bellies bobbing like grotesque lanterns. Bluegill, crappie, catfish, and there, floating near the posts, Big Bertha, her jaw gaping in a silent plea I will never unhear. 3 years of dawn greetings gone. My knees hit the planks so hard they bruised. I cradled her 8 pounds of lifeless power, scales slick with death, and sobbed until the sky blurred. Anger finally pried me off the dock. I called the county environmental hotline. Officer Jim Patterson answered on the second ring. He recognized my voice before I said a name. "Don't touch anything," he ordered, tone all business. "I'll bring hazmat and test kits within the hour." By the time his team rolled in, condensation fogged their headlamps. They slipped into Tyvek suits, dipping vials, stirring the water that now smelled like battery acid. Test strips flared deep indigo and crimson, an unmistakable signature of industrial-grade copper sulfate. Patterson's jaw clenched. Someone nuked this lake, Marcus. Sterilized it. 2, maybe 3 years before anything grows again. While technicians cataloged carcasses, I walked the shoreline like a ghost, documenting every angle. My trail cams had caught nothing. Whoever did this came by water or with lights off. Patterson asked about security footage from neighboring houses. Mrs. Henderson across the county road droops azaleas but loves gadgets. Her doorbell camera sees half my driveway. We reviewed the SD card on Patterson's cruiser laptop. At 2:17 a.m., a white box truck eased down the easement path, headlights blacked out, reflective lettering barely readable in night vision. Clearwater Solutions. 2 figures in respirators dragged hoses to the lake, spraying for 26 minutes. They left at 2:43, taillights still dark. The evidence was surgical. Clearwater's owner, Derek Thompson, had serviced golf courses around the state for years without a single violation. He wouldn't risk federal prison unless convinced the job was legitimate. That meant someone lied through perfect veneers and paid in untraceable bills. I imagined Vivian gripping a clipboard, reciting fabricated algae bloom emergencies, promising hazard pay if the crew could save the community pond overnight. My fists tightened until nails cut skin. Sunrise revealed the full massacre. 207 fish by count, turtles, a pair of wood ducks floating beside lily pads that now curled brown at the edges. The water looked like stained glass hiding a graveyard. Patterson collected samples of sediment, plant tissue, and runoff channels where blue dye streaked the soil. "This is felony destruction of property," he said, voice low. "And because the spring feeds beyond your parcel, we're likely stepping into federal territory. Interstate waters, potential public health hazard." His words barely penetrated the roar in my ears. Sandra and I spent the day in rubber gloves, sliding bodies into contractor bags that thudded like wet sand when thrown into the dumpster. Each thud echoed 13 generations of life snuffed out by a neighbor's vanity. By dusk, my arms trembled so badly I could hardly tie the last bag. The dock, once a cathedral, now reeked of decay and chemicals. Grief eventually settled into something colder, sharper. I opened the workshop drawer where evidence files had grown thick as phone books. The algaecide card, the landscape dumping photos, the survey harassment letter. Each sheet felt heavier than lead, yet somehow not enough. Vivian had escalated from noise to lawsuits to poisoning. The next move had to end this war, not just parry another blow. As the porch light flickered on, illuminating my ruined shoreline, I remembered a detail Patterson mentioned. "Because the spring feeds beyond your parcel." Those words circled my mind like hawks. The aquifer clause in Granddad's deed, the water flowing under Willow Creek Estates. If copper sulfate traveled through limestone as quickly as Patterson feared, then tonight's tainted ripples were already sliding through PVC pipes into spotless designer kitchens. The realization flickered, then flared. I spread maps across the dining table, tracing subterranean channels I'd studied months earlier. The arrows pointed one way, from my poisoned sanctuary straight into Vivian's polished faucets. She hadn't just killed Bertha. Dee served her neighbors a glass of the same poison, and that truth, once proven, would be a blade sharp enough to cut through every deed, lawsuit, and lie she'd ever drafted. I closed the curtain against the chemical moonlight, sealed the last evidence bag, and dialed Tom Martinez. "Get Rebecca Torres on standby," I said, voice steady for the first time all day. "We're going nuclear." Dr. James Mitchell arrived before dawn, headlights cutting through mist that still smelled of copper and rot. He was a hydrogeologist from NC State, 40 years mapping aquifers, and he walked the poisoned shoreline like a surgeon entering an operating room. Precise, silent, grim. From the tailgate of his van, he unloaded sonar rigs, hollow stem augers, and glass vials pre-numbered for chain of custody. I handed him the deed paragraph granting my family, exclusive surface and subsurface water rights to the spring system in perpetuity. He nodded once, as though a judge had just banged a gavel, and said, "Then this entire aquifer is legally your crime scene." While Sandra recorded GPS coordinates, Dr. Mitchell bored test holes along the bank, dropping tiny pumps that hummed like angry bees, drawing groundwater into vials he capped and sealed with evidence tape. Every few minutes a printer in his case spat out live readings. Copper sulfate 12 ppm, 15 ppm, 19 ppm, 4 times the EPA's danger line and climbing. He traced the plume on a laminated map, red Sharpie arrows slicing through limestone channels directly beneath Willow Creek estates. "Contamination will hit their well intakes inside 6 weeks, he murmured. "Maybe 4 if rainfall stays high." Tom Martinez and environmental attorney Rebecca Torres pulled up just as the sun cleared the cypresses. Rebecca scanned the numbers, eyes narrowing behind tortoiseshell frames. "That's not just negligence, it's felony poisoning of a public water supply." She opened her briefcase like a magician revealing doves. Federal complaint forms, state civil action packets, draft restraining orders. "We file simultaneous suits, water rights theft, environmental destruction, punitive damages." They'll be spinning so fast they won't know which fire to smother first. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon. That way, you'll never miss any new coming videos like this. Now, let's get back to it. Dr. Mitchell placed 4 clear jars on the truck bed. My lake water controls spring water from upstream, and 2 samples pulled a mile apart beneath the subdivision. All were the same unnatural turquoise. He photographed them beside that morning's newspaper, timestamp evidence no defense attorney could dismiss. "We'll need homeowner consent to test inside the houses," he said. Rebecca tapped the deed. "Once we notify them the water legally belongs to Marcus and is toxic, they'll be lining up with pictures." Sarah Morgan, the investigative journalist, arrived next, camera already rolling. I expected questions. Instead, she clipped a wireless mic to my shirt. "Tell the lens what happened," she said. I looked into the glass eye and spoke of dawns with Big Bertha, of letters and chainsaws, of the midnight truck spraying death. The words came out steady, almost cold. Grief had crystallized into something harder. By noon, Rebecca had filed emergency motions in county court. A cease and desist forbidding the HOA from engaging any contractor near the water. A preservation order securing my shoreline as evidence. And most important, a notice of water rights ownership delivered via registered mail to every homeowner in Willow Creek estates. The envelope contained 3 pages, a friendly explanation of the deed, Dr. Mitchell's preliminary contamination data, and an offer: no retroactive water fees if they cooperated with testing and supported full ecosystem restoration. The first call back came within 20 minutes. A mother of 2 on Honeycomb Lane said her kids had been vomiting for days. Could Dr. Mitchell test her well? Yes. An hour later, a retired Army colonel asked if I'd join him at that night's HOA meeting to discuss certain irregularities with Madam President. Word spread faster than algae on fertilizer. By sunset, Rebecca's office had logged 67 homeowner responses, all furious, all ready to mutiny. Meanwhile, Derek Thompson, the Clearwater owner, returned my voicemail, voice shaking. He de-reviewed his midnight work order, cash payment, no invoice, community pond, emergency algae bloom, signed by none other than Vivian Blackwater as HOA environmental chair. He offered to hand over service logs, truck GPS data, even the respirator receipts. Rebecca put him on speakerphone while Sarah filmed. "Derek," she said, "cooperate fully and you're a witness, not a defendant." He agreed before she finished the sentence. At 5:03 p.m., the EPA's regional office emailed an official docket number. Preliminary investigation opened. 2 minutes later, local news pinged Sarah for comment on reports of a suburban water poisoning scandal. The story had left the dock. There was no reeling it back. Yet the moment that changed everything came quietly. Dr. Mitchell handed me a printed cross-section of the aquifer. A thick red plume spread under the subdivision like blood beneath a door. He tapped the map with a calloused finger. Marcus, by contaminating your lake, she contaminated every well here, including her own. Legally and literally, she poisoned herself. That single sentence felt like sunrise after a month-long night. The balance of power flipped on its axis. For the first time, Vivian couldn't spin the narrative without swallowing it. Tom clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Tomorrow," he said, "we serve her with the evidence, the felony charges, and the restoration demand. She wanted a war, she just lost it." I stood on the ruined dock, water still tinted in eerie jade, but the evening breeze carried the first hint of hope. Fresh-cut grass from distant yards, and beneath it, the faint, earthy scent of spring water beginning to fight back. Big Bertha was gone, yet her legacy was about to flood every courtroom, every newsfeed, every faucet Vivian Blackwater had once called a selling point. And the best part, I wouldn't have to lift a finger to make that truth sting. The water would deliver the lesson all by itself. The community center lot filled before sunset, cars spilling down both sides of Willow Creek Drive while neighbors who'd never shared more than a wave now clumped together in anxious knots. I walked through their murmurs with Tom, Rebecca, Dr. Mitchell, and Sarah flanking me like a small battalion. Inside, the airless hall buzzed with anger and chlorine metal taste. People swore they could smell their own tap water on their breath. 2 local TV crews had staked out tripods. The red tally lights already glared. Vivian sat at the head table beneath a banner reading Willow Creek Estates, Community Pride. She wore a cream blazer, flawless makeup, but her smile was stapled on crooked. Patricia Morgan, the treasurer she'd bullied for years, banged the gavel. "We're here to address urgent water quality concerns and recent legal notices." Parents shot to their feet waving pediatric bills. A gray-haired man brandished 2 mason jars, one filled with clear supermarket water, the other turquoise from his kitchen sink. "Look at this," he shouted, sloshing poison onto the linoleum. Gasps rippled, camera flashes strobed. Vivian lifted the microphone. "Mineral fluctuation is normal in transitional seasons." "Lie," someone yelled. Another voice added, "We've got lab results." The crowd surged until Patricia threatened to adjourn. Dr. Mitchell stepped forward, unrolled a 4-foot map of the aquifer and pinned it to the corkboard. Red arrows pulsed under fluorescent light. "Copper sulfate introduced here," he said, tapping my lake. "Flow velocity 1.2 feet per hour. All wells contaminated within 41 days. Current concentration 4 times EPA maximum. Consuming this water is hazardous, especially to children and pregnant women." Silence followed, thick, shocked, absolute. Then Rebecca spoke. "Mr. Reed owns the water rights beneath every home here. He is waiving 15 years of back usage fees, valued at $30 million on 3 conditions. Full lake restoration funded by HOA insurance, immediate installation of certified filtration systems, and the resignation of all board members involved in unauthorized chemical dumping." Tom rolled a portable speaker forward and pressed play. Derek Thompson's recorded voice filled the hall. "Yes, Mrs. Blackwater paid in cash, claimed emergency algae bloom, told us not to file paperwork." The timestamp glowed on the monitor. Gasps turned to mutters, mutters to growls. Sarah raised her camera as cell phones lifted in unison, capturing Vivian's lipstick tremble. The double doors opened. 2 sheriff's deputies and an EPA marshal strode in, tan uniforms crisp. Patricia swallowed. "Officers," the marshal read in a level baritone, "Vivian Grace Blackwater, you are under arrest for felony illegal dumping, obstruction of justice, and reckless endangerment." Cuffs clicked, her blazer bunched. She wheeled toward the audience, mascara cracking. "You're ruining property values. He's a redneck squatter." The deputies guided her past neighbors whose mortgages she'd once threatened. A teenager filmed her exit, whispering, "TikTok's gonna love this." I stepped to the mic. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for water that gives life. Sign Rebecca's restoration agreement tonight and we start cleanup tomorrow." One by one, people raised hands. I, until only empty chairs remained dissenting. Outside, dusk glowed violet, sprinklers ticking over ornamental grass none of us would trust again. Parents hugged children against hip bones. The kids pressed neon water bottles to chests as if suddenly precious. Rebecca handed me the stack of signed agreements, still warm from ink. "They chose restoration over litigation," she said. "You just turned a war into a rescue mission." As TV anchors rehearsed live teasers, Sandra found me leaning on the tailgate. She slipped her fingers through mine. "Think your grandfather would be proud?" I pictured him setting cedar posts, sweat-streaking dusty arms, believing generosity could outlast greed. I squeezed her hand. "He always said good water runs two directions, down to the roots and forward to the next generation. Tonight it finally changed course." The EPA marshal approached. "We'll have emergency filtration trucks here by morning. Your evidence made the difference." He studied the lake, its surface dull pewter under parking lot floods. "She tried to bury proof in water. Funny how water brought it all back up." He tipped his hat and left. Sarah's camera light blinked off. She tucked her gear away. Headlines locked. HOA president arrested after poisoning own neighborhood's water. Lake owner forgoes millions to save community. "Think readers will believe it?" I shrugged. "They'll believe the science and the cuffs," she grinned. "Tomorrow we start the follow-up, how a bass named Big Bertha toppled a suburban tyrant." Late that night I walked the shoreline alone. The algae sheen still floated, ghostly under moonlight, but when I knelt and cupped a palmful, I imagined the day it would run clear again. Wind riffled the cypress leaves with a whisper like applause. Somewhere under the hush I heard the faint echo of a splash, memory or promise, I couldn't tell, but I whispered back all the same. "Hold on, we're coming." 6 months passed, and dawn finally smelled like itself again. Humid pine, clean mineral mist, and that faint electrified scent of sunlight touching open water. From the rebuilt dock I watched Dr. Mitchell's barge idle mid-lake, hatches popping open as students from Pine Ridge High eased bins of fingerling bass into the shallows. The fish shot forward like sparks from a grinder, darting through new beds of eelgrass that swayed the way my grandfather's overalls used to on the clothesline. The restoration team cheered in polite science voices, but the kids hollered like it was the 4th of July, each splash erasing a little more of the nightmare copper had painted here. EPA tests now read, ND, none detected. That bureaucratic abbreviation carried more relief than any prayer I'd muttered in the dark months. The lake's color had shifted from windshield fluid to smoky emerald to the old deep glass clarity that let you count pebbles 5 feet down. Turtles returned first, gliding like old landlords reclaiming property taxes. Then dragonflies stitched silver threads across the surface, followed by great blue herons flapping in on prehistoric wings, as if they'd penciled the date into some primordial planner. Saturday mornings turned communal. Instead of Vivian's chainsaws, the soundtrack was families lining the bank with loaner rods from the Bertha Brigade, kids program Rebecca, and I started with settlement funds. We kept rules simple: barbless hooks, catch and release, 2 minutes to admire each fish, then whisper a wish and let it go. Parents filmed awkward first casts, kids shrieked when bluegill nibbled. Laughter bounced off cypress trunks like rubber balls. Seeing Willow Creek neighbors grin at water they once feared made the months of legal trench warfare feel less like bitterness and more like compost feeding something worthy. The HOA held elections, actual elections, under bylaws rewritten by homeowners, not dictated by a queen in a Lexus. Patricia became president. First act was a transparency portal where every invoice posts in real time. They even invited me to serve on the Environmental Stewardship Committee. I accepted on one condition: we rename it Lake Guardians, so kids wouldn't glaze over when we explained budgets. Motion passed, unanimous. Turns out democracy works best when everyone's water line runs through the same aquifer. Vivian's chapter ended in courtroom fluorescence. She pled guilty, exchanged designer blazers for khaki scrubs, and began a 3-year stint at the federal facility in Talladega. Part of her plea required 200 hours of community service restoring wetlands after release. I wondered if she'd recognize the smell of honest mud when she knelt to plant bulrushes. Richard filed for divorce, moved to Charlotte, and sold his stake in pristine landscaping to pay EPA fines. Last I heard, he'd taken up beekeeping, Apparently penance can be sweet. The state legislature fast-tracked the Blackwater Bill, mandating independent audits for any HOA handling environmental infrastructure and forbidding retroactive enforcement on pre-existing properties. The governor signed it at a podium draped with a banner that read "Protect What's Yours" in block letters Sarah suggested after binge-watching the live stream. She won an investigative journalism award for the series. Her acceptance speech thanked a fish named Big Bertha who exposed more corruption than any whistleblower hotline. My own life tilted into unexpected light. Solar installations tripled. People trusted a contractor who fought for clean water. I carved a new cedar plaque beside Granddad's original, "Water Remembers." During the dedication, Sandra squeezed my arm and whispered, she'd be proud. I knew she meant Bertha as much as Granddad. Both had become shorthand for every living thing that can't hire lawyers but still deserves defenders. Late one evening, I paddled out alone, moon sliding across black glass, fireflies twitching among reeds. I dropped a hydrophone Dr. Mitchell loaned me for curiosity's sake. Through earbuds came faint pops and clicks, young bass testing their jaws on water striders, chorus frogs tuning up for midnight mass. The lake wasn't merely recovered, it was composing new music. I thought of Vivian pacing a concrete courtyard without a single blade of grass, and felt no triumph, only the strange peace of a balance restored. Just before heading in, I felt a tug on the line, nothing huge but determined. Up surfaced a sleek juvenile, maybe 2 pounds, dark bars already bowled against silver. For a moment the fish hovered in my palm, eyes unblinking, gills pulsing slow. I couldn't prove genetics, but hope whispered a name anyway. "Grow big, little bee," I said, lowering her back. She vanished with one flick, leaving a perfect circle that widened until it kissed the stars. If this story reaches you someplace where a bully, a board, or a corporation thinks they can poison your peace, remember, truth flows. Document everything, stand on the exact words that grant you rights, and let patience carry your evidence through the channels carved by those who came before. Water may take the long path, but it never forgets its source, or its destination. So tell me, what's the lake, garden, or quiet corner you fight to protect? Drop your story below. Someone out there needs your map. And if you ever doubt that one ripple can rewrite the shoreline, come visit on a Saturday. Listen to kids giggling over borrowed rods, feel the dock vibrate under their excitement, and watch the water, clear, living, free. Remember everything we nearly lost and everything we chose to save. From a single promise carved in cedar to a community reborn around clear water, this story proves one voice, one lake, one stubborn bass can spark change bigger than any bully. If Big Bertha's legacy inspired you, tap like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you're first to hear our next tale of ordinary people defeating extraordinary injustice. Share your own battles in the comments. Your experience could be the lifeline someone else is praying for tonight. Until then, stand firm, stay curious, and remember, truth flows, courage ripples, and clean water is worth every fight you will ever wage.